hope everyone is okay and had a lovely weekend. I obviously did the car boot sale, so I was exhausted yesterday, and I didn't release the episode of Inadequate Mother. I'm going to release it today, and if I'm honest, I think I didn't press release because I'm just nervous, and all interpreters will relate to the feeling of feeling responsible and just it's a high pressured responsibility to voice over wonderful deaf people and choose the right words that give them justice and that they deserve. And it's so when I voiced over this episode, I'm just like, oh God, that's rubbish. But I promised myself that I wouldn't overthink and think, oh, I could do that better, because I mean, it took me about 6 hours not gonna lie, to edit this, and it's still not good enough. But this lady's story needs to be heard by hearing people. I truly believe in podcasting being a way to share all our stories, and yes, sharing stories is what I want to do. So please, before I waffle on anymore, let me introduce the wonderful Penny Gunn, who is a deaf-blind lady that travelled her ass all the way to Morocco, was on her own in a retreat with ladies that are deaf, managing herself and just finding what it is she went to Morocco to find. And we had the most wonderful conversation. Obviously, I want everyone who's hearing to just bear in mind that the podcast voiceover it's not smooth, it's not a natural way to listen to a podcast, but be patient. This is something that's really important, that we lift up everyone's stories. I'm not the best at voiceover, it is not my strength, but I promised myself that I wouldn't overthink this and just get it out there. So enjoy. Right, guys, so I'm back here, and again I have my second lady who is deaf. So this will be a podcast in sign language. Luckily, I've massively adjusted to my sign language because I've been here in Morocco with a deaf group. So I've only been signing now for around 5 days, is it? 6. Yeah, 6 days. I've got this lovely lady here called Penny. What's your second name? Gunn. Right, okay. So we first met here, and I'm just so inspired and impressed. I want to take her home. She's just absolutely a lovely, inspiring woman, and I just think she's incredible. I think about my mum, my grandma, and I'm just like blown away by you. You coming here, your career. Do you like it here? Yes, definitely here. I am in my area of strength. I am just a lover of yoga and have been for, years and years. So this is my first time abroad, though, in a retreat for 1 week. And to be honest, Hayley, it was a real challenge for me just to build up and stretch myself, really look within, challenge and pick apart what I needed to find. I got it, though. I got it, and I'm taking it home. So for me, I think being a deaf-blind lady, when I arrived and joining the group as the only one that was deaf-blind and booking this 1 week retreat, it was a real challenge for me, and who I was going to connect with, what people were going to be there. I didn't know if I was going to have areas of conversation which was going to fit with me. But day 7, I think tomorrow, I can definitely tell you I feel happier, and I found my issues that I needed to, address. Me being a deaf-blind woman, I have alopecia for over 27 years now.
7
so,
years?
Yeah,
wow,
27
have you always
years.
had alopecia or wigs?
So if we go back, when my daughter was born, who's called Sophie, I
had her and then, went to the hairdressers, and the hairdresser said I had a little bald area in the back of my head, which I wasn't too, concerned about. That I went to the doctor and they told me I had alopecia. And I was like, what's that? And then 3 months later, the hair started falling out, and it was a massive emotional trauma, like pain. There was a lot
Is that
coming
something
out,
that
and 3
always
years
happens?
I think down the line I
changing
just
as they get older, or
chopped
can
it
it
all
just
off,
stay the same?
and I
People with
ended up
ushers.
getting a new wig. I think the wig for me is just because I was just weak with the lack of confidence, and for a long time, 27 years I've worn wigs. But I think 3 years ago I just started taking it off more. When I go on holiday, just take the wig off. I have the wig in my hand luggage, and it serves as a great hat for when you're cold. And I always bring it with me. And, when people look at me now, if I've got no hair, I'm not really as affected. I'm also partially blind as well. So communication in terms of missing out on conversations and how I'd fit in, I was very much trying to work out how that would be. And I'd be very frustrated trying to develop the skills to, interact and get the conversation and join in as much as I can and contribute by prompting people maybe to repeat. But on night time, it doesn't matter. I sit there and I'll watch the stars. They're important to me, to connect to the stars. Everyone's signing away, but I'm quite peaceful with the yoga, and it's more of a holistic treatment for me.
Yes, holistic, meaning all the different elements that you can encompass within healing. It's beautiful. Means that you can really just look up. We'll be talking away and you're just connecting to another form of therapy. Do you have ushers or are you blind?
So ushers doesn't mean blind, no. It varies on different scales in terms of what you see. I was born with ushers and I didn't have full peripheral vision. My sister was also the same, deafblind. We are both have it, but my brother and sister who are hearing don't have ushers. So it meant it was a genetic thing. So yeah, a peripheral vision, growing up, really, I never knew what that was. I never knew what full peripheral vision was. So some people deaf, they grow up and they think it's normal. They don't know that they have ushers, which is genetic. And then I think they get to about 20, 25, and it just gets smaller and it's a massive shock for them. And it can be really... No, generally it will get worse and smaller because the genetic coding, obviously it's different for everybody. It's a bit like being deaf. You have, partially deaf, hard of hearing. You have different types of ushers also.
So will people with Usher's sight definitely become worse as they get older?
Yeah, later. But my mum and dad, they didn't know. They didn't know. I think I remember actually meeting a deaf-blind person, a man who was about 24, and he was explaining to me, he was completely blind and he used hand-on signing. And he was explaining to me that he used to love football and he'd have a really good time going out to football. And then all of a sudden, his sight just went and his confidence and everything. And it was a lot of pain I saw in him. And for me, I'm seeing that pain develop. And my sister as well, she has the same issues.
Do you think that's why you might have developed the skills that you have? Because really, you're quite an impressive woman. I mean, coming out here, there's no way my grandmother, similar to your age, would have ever come here. And she's hearing, and she's got full sight. She would never have the confidence. So what you are is inspiring, and have the confidence to come to Morocco, on your own, come hiking. I know you came with your ex-husband before and went up hiking on mountains. It's extremely impressive and inspirational. I mean, with you over your life, through the challenges, also, you've had to develop some grit and some resilience.
Family, we'd all go out, we'd travel. All of us were into sailing, walking, hiking, running. Well, actually, no. my mother and father encouraged sailing. But running back then, over, many years ago, mother and father, they didn't really do running. It was my brothers and sisters that kind of influenced one another to get into running and get out there. And we'd all encourage each other. And sailing was a big thing. Just going outdoors, really. My mum, she, really opened the doors out, encouraged us to go out, because growing up, you need to develop that confidence. And
now with the technology, people just consumed on their iPads. I wish my children went out more and, activities, getting out. But now with technology in the digital world, scrolling, it's right. For example, how are they going to thrive in life outdoors in the wild if they're not developing?
It's the Wi-Fi, it's really poor here. We're in a desert. You've just had to put your phone down, and that's what I wanted. Yeah, for sure. Growing up, I kind of went oral, and then about 16, I learnt sign language. Not really.
So you were oral? So
I mean,
a lot
back
lip
in them
reading
days,
and...
You were kind of forced to speak. Yeah. You had to be oral.
Really? School forced you?
We had to
So
go
how
to
would they
speech
force
therapy, have one-to-one sessions where they teach you to try and say J, K, G, and sound M's and your N's and your...
Did you ask and tell them you wanted to sign?
No, you were not allowed at that time to sign. You had to sit on your hands.
So did they smack you or punish?
I was 8 and someone showed me sign language.
But you were told to stand in the corner of the room.
They were gagged and they were tied up. And their hands were tied up because they weren't allowed to sign.
Hold on, so you're telling me you actually had to stand in the corner of the room because you were signing? I mean, people don't realise that happened in the history.
When I was signing, my mother and father, they didn't say anything. They say you're being naughty, and that, looking back now, it's shocking. The teacher, was a friend of my mother's. And, the teacher obviously had knew me from a baby, and she'd been to hospitals and, had been in our lives since we were young. So I didn't want to tell my mom on the teacher.
Did you ever tell your mother?
Not really, because my mum died when I was young, so that she's gone now. So, and I never told my father. So, if they were both here, I'd let them know. But, there's souls up there. They know, their spirits know. And
it was very similar to for a lot of schools, wasn't it?
I was the only... Oh, right. Sorry.
In terms of not being allowed to sign.
A lot of people the same. It was the same in many schools. You were not allowed to sign. And it was through, that history of Graham Bell. Yeah, he invented the phone. He had a wife that was hard of hearing, and he was constantly trying to encourage oralism. And in the 1880s, the Milan Conference... Yeah, so obviously that story is behind that ongoing banning of sign language. And it, when sign language got introduced, it built our confidence.
I really see this a lot where I meet people now who really have just forgotten that. They think that sign language has always been around like it is today. Sure. So when I go, for example, to meet, interpret for an elderly person that's doing a benefit check, and they'll ask the question, what's your first language? And they will say sign language. But that person, is expected to have, learnt that language from a childhood, but they haven't took into account all the struggles that they've had their whole life. They just think, oh, we'll get an interpreter in and that's your language. But it's, later in life, getting language, what that means. There's a lot of issues, and people just assume, oh, they just need an interpreter, and that's the just extra support that we can offer them in terms of benefits, etc. But the questions are very limited. There's no context. There's no actual story of their life in terms of the backlog and the back history. And yes, sign language has changed, access has changed now, but we have to take into consideration the lack of access historically into education, career, the struggle. And people are forgetting that sometimes.
Well, that's exactly why I'm here talking now and having this conversation, because my aim is to improve how we fit in. Historically, deaf people have had to be oral, but now they have BSL, which is amazing. But back then, deafblind, they didn't have anything. They didn't have any kind of hands-on sign language. And deafblinds had to kind of like feel the letters on the hands. But the community back then, they really struggled. And deaf people and deafblind people would struggle to connect. But with sign language, it was, once it got introduced, we've gradually developed hands-on sign language.
Right, okay,
Because
so it's
now we
all
have
about
BSL,
asking
so
what
we
the
can
best
kind of
is
hop
for
on
the
that.
person and their
But
preferred
back
way.
then, there was nothing for, there was just oral. So that meant there was absolutely nothing for deafblind. So, for example, I see you signing, that's fine, visually in frame, perfect distance of place. If I'm sat too close to you, I can't see very well. So I kind of have to, also take into account how far away I am to see the lip reading. And when it's comfortable, it's fine. But some people cannot see, close up at all. For example, me signing, if I wanted to, I could then just put my hands on yours. So if you sign your name, so there, and then I would sign back to you. I would then use my sign language and you would respond using your hands. So that is fantastic, and it's lovely, and it's relaxing, and it's a fantastic way. Thanks to Beth, bringing us here to connect in that way, and for me to show you how we can take turns. But sometimes hands-on when you finish, so when you finish responding and then I sign back to you, you might want to then prompt me so that you let me know that you understand. So it's like when we're on the phone and you say, oh, really? Really? Okay, wow. It's the same. So let's practice that. So we have to kind of understand the prompts as well. So my name is Penny. So you just tap me and say, you understand. I love food. Understood. So it's just that little prompt. So it means, so what if I didn't understand? Okay, so I just have to put 2 fingers on the arm and then you just go again. So it's like if you didn't understand me, you just prompt my arm and say again. So that's how it is. And, a lot of people have different ways of doing that. We're not all the same. We all have preferred ways of doing things. So that's a really good question. So some people do one-handed and they'll sign one-handed whilst having a hand on you whilst you sign. But some people need to have 2 hands on you because they can't see you, and when they sign back, they're not seeing you. They don't necessarily know where you are, but they'll sign, and when finished, they'll put their hands back on you.
So you're obviously a deaf-blind lady and have been for some years. What do you wish people knew? What do you want everybody in the world to know? For example, your struggles because of society not understanding how to manage deaf-blind.
That is a very big question, because deaf-blind is a real rare and unique experience. You've got 2 things together that are really quite negative. And I think because you have hearing, you have deaf that don't hear, and then you have blind that have both hearing loss and blindness, it's most definitely, yes, deaf-blind people know it's scary because they have to try and be positive. And, some people might not be bothered in terms of like trying to interact with people. But I have deaf-blind people that can see out of one eye. not and see nothing out the other. They have to do hands-on. They can see far away, but evening they can see nothing. And her emotional experience is very different to mine. So it's like that. It's about understanding the individual and having that heart to imagine and empathize with everybody in an individual way. You know, if I was blind, then I would be able to, relate. But really, we can never know her experience. I'm very proud of her going out. My friend, she goes to the park, she goes to flowers, museums, she does sewing, and she makes dresses and things, and she does hands-on sign language. But she's got very few people around her, very few, because she has to try and catch up with the subtitles, and with dancing, did you know that Strictly Come Dancing program? It was a very visual program, and they put up the cards. She could see the cards, and she got excited. She loved that.
Do you go
When we
into
were,
any schools
going
doing
out to the
your
theatre,
training?
she watches the
No, do you wish you
dancing.
could go to
It's
schools?
her, builds
Yeah,
her
I
up,
mean,
and it
I think
builds
it's
up
really
this strength and
important,
this
really
emotional.
important that you are able
Would
to
you
teach
say that
children
deafblind,
to
I
kind of
know it's
widen their
extremely
understanding for
difficult,
people
but
that are deafblind, so
you
they can develop that
have a
empathy and
good
imagine what life
relationship
might be
almost with
like,
yourself
and do it
because
from young
you're
age.
isolated so much. You have to kind of look within regularly. Does that mean that you're empowered because you're connected within yourself a lot more, do you think, compared to others? So I feel like that's, an incredible gift that you have, an empowered gift, that actually your life has always just allowed you to look within, where you've had to connect from within. And I know it's hard because you disconnect from the world.
And talking about disconnect, yes, I set up some deaf blind awareness training. I set that up because 10 years ago, I remember meeting a deaf blind trainer. Okay, so deaf blind training is for anyone who wants to work with deaf blind people, maybe interpreters or communication guidance professionals, anyone that's, maybe in a doctor's, a surgery, gym, physio, where there might be interpreters, wherever in the world there needs to be access. Deaf blind awareness, that's kind of just picking apart and building up basic knowledge about what is deafblindness. You can go, further in and learn how to do hands-on training, how to manage lifting people, how to, we've got the different guide dogs, what side they go on, and also the emotional elements surrounding deafblindness, and how that might feel. We do some training where we will actually blindfold people, and that gives them the ability and opportunity to empathize with how deafblind people can also be empowered through that empathy.
Developing that empathy and just not having that ignorance, I think, is really important for different people to experience from young. I think it's better
I
than
love
learning, I don't know,
that.
boring science.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's really funny
So
because
well
I've,
done
you know,
for
ran
being
my
so
own
creative,
business
setting up your
now
own
for
business and
18
achieving
years,
what you did.
and it was always BSL, sign language only, up to level 1s, up to level 6, and the interpreter course, along with lip speaking courses. There was nothing for deaf blind, and that was really because the curriculum of theirs was just kind of, the information didn't really match, and it was very basic. So, I've always taught sign language, and then thought I really want to set something up for deaf blind, and a trainer came, and so far it's been really quite successful. And that's because I really want to see more communication guides, more interpreters aware, so that they will be more open to work with deaf-blind people, so that deaf-blind can be privileged to connect and interact with the world. 10 years ago, there was nothing really available. So it's about supporting deaf-blind people to see and develop their social skills and how they interact, and train people up for ways like I showed you with the hands-on. I mean, that makes me so happy and emotional, and just, I think we really need to plant the seed, like food for thought, in terms of how we can better people's. So that was actually the name of my business. Yes, it's Signs for Thought. And how I came up with that name, because years ago I was on the train and I had some hearing friends, and they both signed, and we were going to a party, and the three of us, you can't tell people that. So we were on the train, and it was really full to the brim of people, and it was a small coach, and the three of us were signing, and everyone was just kind of maybe 10 people around us that were just watching us sign. And they were like, "Oh, and we said to them, do you want to learn some sign language?" And we were teaching them the alphabet. And when I got home, I thought of the name Sign for Thought.
That's really, really, I like it. Very creative. Congratulations for setting up and achieving so much.
I mean, I never thought I would do it. I never thought it would happen. I didn't plan for it to happen.
So when it happened, how old were you? Good question. I was 38. That's a relief to know, because it's similar age to me now, starting.
Really? I didn't know your age. So I'm 66 now, but don't tell anyone, obviously.
I mean, honey, you are beautiful. You should be really proud of your age. It's impressive. This year I turned 40, and I know it can be hard, like, to accept getting older and getting on. But for you, I'm just like, fuck it. Yeah, this is what I want.
Yeah, role model for you.
Yeah, I'm desperate to take your picture, because, it'll just remind me how beautiful old age can be, and you can really get through life, and just, it doesn't matter, you can thrive.
Just positivity.
Completely agree.
So when people look at me and, I haven't got hair, but I'm still positive, it's lovely. I've got the confidence.
Do you think seeing all the celebrities and famous people with bald hair, is it giving you more confidence?
Yeah, definitely. Back then compared to now.
I mean, it's really quite in fashion.
Of course, yeah. And I've got a funny story, actually, because I have a wig with you, as I told you. And, obviously now I'm 66, but grey hair, when I went shopping, in terms of finding a real haired wig, you can't get grey hair. So they're all fake grey hair. I think there's hair you can get from Russia or Greece or Arabic hair, and it's all cut off and donated to make the wigs. I have Russian hair wig, and it's brown, dark brown. And I asked them for grey, and they were like, no, never, because they don't get any grey hair donated. So when, I've got to an age where, that doesn't necessarily suit me, I'm just like off. I might wear a scarf with some nice earrings.
I love it. I really do. I think, definitely. And imagine if you were older and you'd managed to grow luscious grey locks. You'd want to keep them for yourself, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, feeling younger, having hairs and thinking young is positive, but I don't look in the mirror too much these days. I won't look. I'll just carry on with my business.
So how many children do you have? One? Right, one.
I have one daughter.
Yes, I have the one daughter. She's an interpreter. Oh, I know her. She's a beautiful lady. I've seen a picture. Wow. Absolutely stunning daughter. How's your relationship with her? Like, how did you manage growing up as a mom? What's that story? as a deafblind mother teaching sign language, I'm assuming, and helping her understand your ushers in terms of where she should sign.
Well, interestingly, I went to Bristol University and did deaf studies. Yeah, Bristol. So, deaf studies, and one of the lectures was actually about how you teach sign language to babies, which was very interesting. So, obviously, when I was pregnant, I knew how to sign to my baby, and my ex-husband, he was verbal, so he would speak and she would get the audio of speech and sign language, so she was bilingual. So she had the speech from my hard of hearing husband, and she could understand and watch that along with the sign language, but my voice was always off growing up. When she went to school, obviously she was around hearing people and got that input. I think around teenagers years, she realized that, other people were hearing and had hearing parents. Why am I so different? And she couldn't find really where she was from, who she was. And she joined a coda camp, and it was there that she really found her tribe, her world. And that was incredible. And I'm so happy that she had that and she was able to share with those people and develop those relationships. Because I think she didn't realize she had a level of frustration, and nobody really understood her. But then when she went to Coda Camp, she found.
Yeah, I find that really interesting because me as a mother, when I look at my child, I just see me. We're the same. You're a mini me. We're completely the same. But my children, for example, they're mixed race, and I'm also mixed race. But my appearance is more white in comparison to their appearance. So they appear more darker. So in theory, we're both the same, but they were very adamant, no, we are not the same, Mum. Don't call us the same. They fought me in terms of trying to make me understand. And I had to really take that on board and say sorry, that it doesn't matter how I feel as the mum in terms of, it's about how the world treats them, how the world sees them, and how they interact with the world interacts with them. And I'm never going to know their experience. I'm never going to know how the world sees them because we all connect with the world in a different way. And I had to really kind of accept their perspective that the world will see them as black and they will see me as white. And, it's about that perspective and how that perspective navigates their life. And I had to say sorry to them. And I think it's really hard for us as mums to accept that your children's journey is going to be different. And I can't, have the answers for you. But in terms of you recommending maybe Coda Camp, for that child to go and share similar experiences for them to connect with people who will connect with the world the same way.
Actually, she joined later on in a committee. She never actually went to Coda Camp growing up, and she found it through a voluntary opportunity. And really, when she realised what it was, she wished she'd joined, but you can't force them. And also back then, there was no internet, social media, information through Facebook. So publicising these things, now there's plenty of information and promotion.
Thank you so much, Penny, for giving me and sharing your beautiful stories as a mother, as as an inspirational woman. I hope that you really get the opportunity to share more because you are wise. You have a level of understanding and life experience that we can all benefit from. And I hope that gets far and wide and that your awareness gets out there. I think it's really important for us to, start teaching from a young age about sign language, but also deaf awareness. Yes, agreed. Deaf awareness, but also deaf-blind awareness. I think deaf obviously have more access because, and I think if we're honest, people forget about the deaf-blind community. Yes, and also I remember one person told me, they said, it will be very difficult to fully bridge the gap, for example, between hearing and deaf, and then deafblind. You've got 3 groups of people, and to have no gap between them, trying to kind of connect them, deafblind, hearing, there's definitely a long way to go to bridge those gaps. And I feel deaf and hearing people, there's, you know, a great opportunity. I mean, some people don't want it, but, you know, they don't want to be involved, but it can be quite positive. But in terms of deafblind, there's a lot of emotions there that need to be addressed, and hopefully in the future I can see that happening more. It's not going to be 100%,